Welcome back to Kin in Line. This is part 55, I make it. Yeah. Just before I set off on this one, to make a correction on my previous video, I mentioned that John Scott was the cartoonist on the Cape Times. He was in fact a parliamentary correspondent and wrote some wonderful columns about the absurdities within the apartheid parliament. Tony Grogan was the cartoonist, and he was actually also a graduate of the Jack Lugg Art School. So anyway, this is one of the many retired people who used to pop into our PFP office in Devereux Avenue particularly to write up these canvas cards. I think this was quite a nice sketch. This is not from life, but just a little bit of fun. We had this young chap, quite out of shape with a beard, who was also part of the PFP youth. So a little bit cruelly, I drew this thing. And here's another of the older folk who used to come in and write up cards for us. And as is this, done on the back again of it's another piece of PFP. Anyway, an older chap. We really relied on these volunteers because drawing up all those cards takes forever. And then we had a secretary in the office for a while, a rather short lady. So I did this little cartoon caricature-y thing of her. If it would just focus. I think her name was Madge. See if I zoom in a bit. There we go, finally. It wasn't this bad. She did cope quite easily, but yeah, I'm afraid that's my sense of humor. And I think that same older chap we saw there, redrawn again with a kind of a bokbaard. Now we're going to delve, I think, into all sorts of eras here, because this might date back even from before I went to the army. This is somebody listening, probably for the sound of an oncoming train, which, here we go, similar one. Now this is probably P.W. Botha. There's the Kruithoring. That's the what's that in English? It's the thing they carried the powder in, gunpowder in. So that was the symbol of the National Party. A bit like the ANC having a spear in its logo or whatever. But there was a story at the time that P.W. Botha used to battle getting to sleep because of this train that was approaching. And there were three politicians that worried him, or three figures in the black community who worried him. And they all had sounds related to a steam train. So the first one was a guy called, this was in about 83-4, was Alan Boesak, who was a so-called coloured leader, church leader. So the train would make the sound Boesak, Boesak, Boesak as it went up that steep hill. And when it got to the top, it would blow its little whistle, tutu, tutu, and it was Desmond Tutu. And then as it stormed down the other side, it would pick up speed with the sound of Mandela, Mandela, Mandela. And this is what our Pierre Veer was hearing, and he wasn't too chuffed, I don't think. And sort of less than 10 years later, it would all be a reality for him. So I think I've shown earlier pictures, probably from the late 70s, while I was at art school maybe, of the former Prime Minister of the UK. What was his name? I've done one here of him as well, the pipe smoking. Oh, the memory fails me. That'll come back. And Trian, this is Pik Botha again. There's so many of him. Met him once as a reporter. Absolute gentleman, I have to say, despite having to defend apartheid and so forth. And this was Treinicht Andries, the Lion of the North. He was the Conservative Party leader. Got that look, that sort of dour, severe look. But I'm sure all these people in their private lives were quite pleasant people. This lady I can't actually place. All these drawn from, not from life, but from pictures in a newspaper or something. This is Dennis Worrell, the ambassador to London until about 85, joined the PFP, or ultimately joined what became the Democratic Party. And that was a blow to the National Party, really. He gave them a little bit of credibility, I think. This was Schoeman, the Minister of Transport, Hendrik, I think, dressed as a kind of a cricketer or something, with a Cape Dutch house in the background. Oh, and here we've got General Webster. So I think he was one of the operatives in the military intelligence. His name in his beard there. And I finally did a little one of Helen Suzman, legendary PFP and Progressive Party MP for single-handedly for 13 years. She held the flame of liberty in the apartheid parliament, backed behind the scenes by Colin Eglin, who was the leader of the party. But she was a thorn in the side of the government for many years. And one of my offbeat sketches. Yeah, that's quite a nice one. The sky is, he's writing on the sky. I seem to have a thing about, so here the sun looks like a cloud and the cloud is raining or weeping. Quite bizarre. I even kept my little doodles that I did in the corners of pages. All in the interests of preserving my artistic endeavors. Dave Gravy. Who would he be? Yeah, I mean, any one of these I could have turned into a painting if I'd had the sort of desire to do so. So we've seen these again previously, etchings I did way back in art school. I got mixed up with this lot. Oh, this is quite interesting. So my dad was a architectural draftsman, and he went on his own, probably about around 1965 or 8 or so. He died in 74 in my matric year. So he was C.W.H. Bentley, and it was called Bentley Designs. Look at this bizarrely written address. It was 27 Lotus Avenue was where we were. And he used to receive his checks in the post. So this might have had a check in it for payment for some work he'd done. I kept this obviously just for that little drawing. And there was, this was, I don't know if it's visible here. I hope it is. So you can just make out, this is what he used to design his houses on and whatever he was. So this is probably the only thing we've got left of what he designed is this. And I took it and used it to do all sorts of, this was my art school days, and that's quite a nice drawing actually. So there's that would have been called a site plan, just where the building sits on the site. So we learnt all this stuff as we grew up, because he was doing this full time, that was his job. And very much back at art school here. Another chess set which never was made, but it's quite interesting. Sort of just using color to create shape. Black and white. I don't think anyone's ever made a chess set like that. And I was trying to remember what these things are called. I think it's called a monoprint. It was quite a nice, it gave me quite a nice feel. It's just been stuck on there. And then sort of it's semi-abstract here. More than semi-abstract. Quite nice textures though. Abstract landscape. I'm not sure which way up it is, but it seems to suggest this way. This one. It's quite nice. And there we are. That's South Africa permanently. It's basically a metaphor for where we are. And who is this guy looking down on us? Let's hope he's got our interests at heart, because we certainly need some help from somewhere. I think I'm going to bow out with this. It must have been drawn from life. It looks pretty like it was. And this must again be Dennis Schultz, the Silver Creek Mountain Band. Yeah, so we'll leave it at that for now. Cheers.